The sound came before anything else. A sharp crack, palm against cheek, that bounced off the white marble walls and fell into a silence so deep you could hear your own heartbeat. Amara stood in the middle of the penthouse living room. Her gray dress, her white apron, her right hand still open, still warm from what it had just done. She was breathing fast, chest rising and falling, eyes wide, not from anger, but from the shock of her own courage. The woman on the floor was Raylan. Beautiful as always. The kind of beautiful that takes hours and money to build. Her silk dress spread around her like water. Her hand pressed to her cheek. And in her eyes, not pain. Outrage. Pure, cold outrage. Because the maid had touched her. The maid. Behind Amara, a wheelchair. In it sat Madame Hyajin Kang, 71 years old, small as a winter bird, her left cheek red with a fresh handprint. Her glasses, the ones she needed to read, to see, to be herself, lay cracked on the floor beside her. 3 women. 1 room. 1 truth hiding inside 3 different stories. And then the door opened. Kang Jisoo filled the doorway the way powerful men always do, like the room was built for them, and everyone inside it was furniture. He was 36. Sharp jaw. Sharper eyes. A man who had built his business on reading situations fast and moving faster. He looked at the room and read it in 2 seconds. His fiancée on the floor, crying. His mother in her wheelchair, cheek red. His maid standing between them, chest still heaving. 3 people. 3 faces. 3 versions of what just happened. Raylan spoke through her tears. Her voice came out soft and broken, the way beautiful women learn to speak when they want to be believed without being questioned. She hit me, she whispered. I was just checking on your mother, and she just hit me. The tears were already there. Ready. Like they had been waiting in a drawer for exactly this moment. Amara said nothing. She stood and she waited. Madame Hyajin looked at her lap. Her thin hands gripped the arms of her wheelchair. Her jaw was tight. Her eyes were somewhere far away, somewhere none of them could follow. The room held its breath. Which story would he choose? Jisoo looked at his mother first. Then at Raylan. Then, last, at Amara. His voice was quiet. That was the dangerous kind of quiet, the kind that doesn't need volume because it already has power. Amara, he said. Did you strike her? Amara met his eyes. Yes. 1 word. No apology. No explanation. Not yet. Jisoo's face tightened. A muscle moved along his jaw. Security, he said, not raising his voice. Just saying the word like it was a key turning in a lock. Raylan rose from the floor slowly, gracefully, still holding her cheek. She moved toward Jisoo and placed 1 hand on his arm. I'm not angry, she said softly. I'm just frightened. I don't feel safe here anymore. Jisoo covered her hand with his. He did not look at Amara again. You'll be removed from this property tonight, he said. Gather your things. Amara stood still. She did not argue. She did not beg. She looked at Madame Hyajin 1 more time, just 1 look, steady and full, and the old woman did not look back. The decision had been made. The wrong one. And everything that mattered was about to unravel from here. For months before the slap, Amara Osei arrived at the service entrance of the Kang penthouse with 1 suitcase, a folded work contract, and the memory of her grandmother's voice. She was 29. From Kumasi. Raised in a 2-room house where the floors were swept every morning whether guests were coming or not, because her grandmother said dignity doesn't wait for an audience. The housekeeper, Mrs. O, met her at the elevator. 53, efficient, a woman who had learned to speak in short sentences from years around people who didn't truly listen. You'll care for Madame Hyajin, Mrs. O said. East corridor. Last door. Is she difficult? Amara asked. Mrs. O considered this. She is sharp. There's a difference. The penthouse was vast, white floors, tall windows, light flooding everything. A chandelier in the entrance hall that looked designed by someone who had never worried about an electric bill. Amara walked through it all without touching anything, footsteps quiet. She was here to work. She was invisible, the way workers in grand houses are taught to be. But Amara had always watched carefully, even as a child. Especially then. She knocked on the last door in the east corridor and waited. The room was bright and full of books. Floor-to-ceiling shelves on one wall. A hospital bed dressed to look like a regular bed, white linen, folded corners. And in the center, facing the window and the city beyond it, a wheelchair. Madame Hyacin turned slowly when Amara entered. She was small. White hair cut short. Round glasses sitting slightly crooked on her nose. A face that had once stood at the front of lecture halls commanding students, now compressed, like a voice told to whisper for 3 years and still trying to remember how to be loud. "You're Ghanaian," she said. "Yes, madam. From Kumasi. I taught African literature for 6 years. Achebe. Adichie. Adu. A pause. Do you read? Every night. My grandmother made sure of it." Madame Hyacin studied her the way professors study a new student, not to be impressed, but to understand what they're working with. Then something shifted slightly in her face. Not a smile. The room for a smile. "You'll do," she said. "Sit. We'll start with the rules." Amara sat. She listened. And from that first hour, something quiet and careful began to grow between them, the kind of thing that doesn't announce itself, but is already deep by the time you notice it. Her grandmother had had polio. Amara had been lifting women who couldn't walk since she was 7 years old. She knew how to bathe someone without making them feel bathed. She knew how to braid thin hair gently so the scalp didn't ache. She knew how to push a wheelchair in a way that felt like movement, not like being moved. Madame Hyacin had been a professor of Korean and African literature at Hansung University for 28 years. 3 years ago, a car accident had taken her husband and paralyzed her from the waist down. Since then, she had lived in this penthouse, in this room, in this chair, shrinking. Not because of the wheelchair. Because of the silence. Because no one spoke to her like she was still the woman who had shaped young minds for 3 decades. Within a week, Amara changed that. They read in the mornings, Madame Hyacin's voice becoming the professor's voice again. They argued in the afternoons about books, about ideas, about whether Adichie was brave or strategic or both. They disagreed loudly and with great pleasure, the way 2 women do when they've each been waiting their whole lives for someone worth arguing with. The room, silent for 3 years, began to fill with sound. Co Raylan arrived every morning at 11:30. She was everything a man like Jisoo might choose. Tall, elegant, the founder of a lifestyle brand with millions of followers who admired her taste and her softness. She brought flowers for Madame Hyacin, always fresh, always arranged, and kissed the old woman's cheek and called her Aomioni, which meant mother. "My beautiful inspiration," she would say, posting photos of Madame Hyacin before asking if that was all right. Amara watched. She had been raised by a woman who said, "Real warmth is messy. It trips over itself. It laughs at the wrong time. It forgets to be graceful." Raylan's warmth was never messy. Every gesture landed exactly where it was supposed to. Every word hit its mark with the precision of something that had been practiced. Her grandmother had also said, when someone is too careful with their kindness, they are hiding its opposite. Amara said nothing. She smiled when she was supposed to smile. She poured tea at the right times. She was invisible, the way she had been taught to be. But she kept watching. Because the thing about being invisible is that invisible people see everything that visible people forget to hide. Day 9. Amara returned to Madame Hyacin's room with afternoon tea. The door was slightly open. She heard Raylan's voice before she saw anything. Low. Almost gentle. The tone of someone who wants to sound kind while saying something cruel. "You know he'll put you in a home eventually. After the wedding, a nice facility, clean rooms, good care. You'll have your books." A pause. "But you won't have the view. You won't have Jisoo visiting. Because I'll explain that the facility provides better care. And he'll believe me. He always believes me." Madame Hyacin's voice came back small. "Please don't. Then don't make me. When the new doctor visits, you'll tell him you've been confused. Forgetting things. Do you understand?" Silence. Then, barely above a breath, "Yes." Amara stood in the hallway, fingers white around the tea tray handles. She waited 3 seconds. Arranged her face. pushed the door open and walked in smiling, setting the tray down, making the ordinary sounds of ordinary service. Raylan straightened. Her smile returned instantly. But Amara had heard. And now she began to watch differently, not with curiosity, but with the focused attention of a woman who has realized she is the only witness to something that cannot go unseen. Day 12. She found the bruise while helping Madame Hygiene change for the evening. Inside the upper arm. Purple. The shape of 3 fingertips pressed too hard and held too long. Amara went still. Madame Hygiene pulled away. I'm clumsy. I bumped the chair arm. I helped my grandmother dress every day for 16 years. Amara's voice was steady. Wheelchair arms don't leave fingerprints. The old woman looked away. Her jaw tightened the same way Jesu's did, the same blood, the same stubbornness. It's nothing, she said. The gate had closed. Amara didn't push. She had learned this from her grandmother too, that some truths can't be pulled out. They have to be given. She helped Madame Hygiene with the rest of her buttons in silence, straightened the blanket across her lap, and placed her book within easy reach. That night, Amara lay in her small room at the end of the service corridor and stared at the ceiling. She did not cry for herself. She cried for the woman down the hall, the professor who had spent her life building young minds and was now sitting in the dark, protecting the person hurting her because she was more afraid of what would happen if she didn't. Day 14. Amara came to Madame Hygiene's room after the laundry shift. The wheelchair was facing the wall. Not the window. Not the bookshelf. The wall 6 inches of white paint. The Han River was behind her, shining in the afternoon light, and she couldn't see any of it. Madame Hygiene could not turn the chair herself. Her arms weren't strong enough for the weight. How long have you been like this? Amara asked. What time is it? 4 o'clock. Since 11. A pause. She said I needed rest. That the light was bothering my eyes. Was it? No. Amara gripped the handles and turned the chair slowly back toward the window. The afternoon light fell across Madame Hygiene's face. She blinked, the slow blink of someone coming out of a very dark place. Amara adjusted the blanket. Handed over the book. Opened the curtain wider so the river filled the glass. Then Madame Hygiene opened the book, and her hands shook for the first page. By the second, they were steady. By the third, the professor's voice returned, quiet, clear, reading aloud to a room that had been silent for 5 hours. Amara stood by the window. Her jaw was so tight it ached. Day 17. She found the glasses in the bureau drawer, hidden under a folded scarf. Both lenses intact, but the frame slightly bent, like someone had placed them in quickly, without care. Madame Hygiene had been sitting in silence for 2 days. Unable to read. Unable to see the view clearly. Unable, really, to be herself. Amara understood what she was holding. Glasses are small things. But for a woman whose entire life was built on reading, whose identity lived in language, in poetry, in argument and ideas, taking her glasses was not a small thing. It was a slow erasure. Not violent enough to prove. Just steady enough to work. She cleaned the lenses with her apron. She knelt beside the wheelchair, the way she used to kneel beside her grandmother's chair after cleaning the old woman's reading glasses with the hem of her dress. She placed them gently on Madame Hygiene's face. The room sharpened. The bookshelf. The window. Amara's face. Madame Hygiene looked at her for a long moment. Something moved in the old woman's eyes, gratitude too deep for words and too heavy to hold. Thank you, she whispered. Her hands shook. That night, Amara made a decision. She could not fix this quietly. She would have to speak. But first, she heard one more thing. Day 19. Late afternoon. Amara was passing the corridor when Raylan's voice came through the half-open door. Not loud, never loud, but sharp as a needle finding a vein. You think he's changing because of that woman. Because she braids your hair and makes you laugh. But let me tell you something, Aomioni. The word came out honey-sweet and razor-thin. When the papers are signed and I am the one he comes home to, you will have nothing left to protect you. No maid with strong hands. No afternoons by the window. You will be declared unfit, confused, declining, and there will be nothing anyone can do. Because I will have already built the case. Document by document. Doctor by doctor. Silence. And no one will question it. Because I am very, very good at this. Amara stood in the hallway and let that settle into her bones. She now understood what she was looking at, not cruelty for cruelty's sake, but a plan. Patient, precise, and nearly invisible. The kind of plan that works because the person building it is never seen building it. The kind of plan that only fails when someone is watching. Day 25. Amara went to Jisoo. His office was glass-walled, the city spread below like a map of everything he owned. He listened without interrupting, which she had not expected. She told him everything. The threats she had overheard. The hidden glasses. The bruise shaped like 3 fingertips. The wheelchair left facing the wall for 5 hours. The swollen finger and the smile that followed it. He listened. His face gave nothing away. Then he called Raylan. Raylan arrived in 12 minutes. That alone told Amara something. 12 minutes is not time to prepare. It is time to perform. The tears were already forming when she entered. Photos came out, pictures of her with Madame Hyojin, the old woman looking almost happy. "I love your mother," Raylan said, voice breaking exactly when it needed to. "Why would this woman lie about me?" She looked at Amara with something colder than anger, the look of someone calculating how long the problem will take to disappear. Jisoo went to Madame Hyojin's room. Everyone followed. He knelt slightly. "Omioni. Amara says Raylan has been hurting you. Is that true?" Madame Hyojin looked at Raylan. Just once. At the eyes that said, the home, the facility alone. "No," she said quietly. "The maid is mistaken." Fear wins long before anyone raises their voice. That was what Amara understood walking back to her room. She had expected Madame Hyojin to be afraid. What she hadn't expected was how clean and complete that fear would be, how it would look, from the outside, exactly like calm. Jisoo had turned to her in the hallway. Voice even and careful. "My mother has spoken. If you continue making accusations you cannot prove, I will reconsider your position here." He left. The conversation was over. Raylan passed Amara in the doorway without stopping. Just one flat, cold look, then gone. But that look said everything words would have made too obvious. "You lost. And you will keep losing. Because I have thought further ahead than you." That night, Amara sat on the edge of Madame Hyojin's bed in the dark, long after the old woman had fallen asleep. She didn't speak. She just sat, the way she had sat beside her grandmother in hard years, when there was nothing left to say and presence was the only honest thing. When she finally rose to leave, Madame Hyojin's eyes were open. "Don't leave me alone with her," the old woman whispered. "I'm not going anywhere." She kept that promise the only way she could, by staying close, adjusting her schedule, making herself present in every space Raylan liked to fill. She braided Madame Hyojin's hair every Thursday. Small cornrows, close to the scalp. The first time she held up the mirror, Madame Hyojin touched the braids slowly, like reading something in a language she had almost forgotten. "I look like a queen," the old woman said. "You do. Or ridiculous. Those aren't different things." Madame Hyojin laughed, full and real, the kind of laugh locked in a room for 3 years that finally breaks the door down. From the hallway, Amara heard footsteps pause, then walk away. She also cooked jollof rice on Tuesdays, after the chef left the kitchen. She brought a bowl without explanation. "What is this?" "Jollof rice. It smells like it's arguing with me." In Ghana, polite food is bad food. Madame Hyojin ate the whole bowl. "First full meal in 3 months, Mrs. O said later. Tuesdays became jollof rice day. And in the small space between a Ghanaian woman cooking and a Korean professor eating, something was being rebuilt that no one, not even Raylan, knew how to stop. Day 31. 4:15 in the afternoon. Amara was in the corridor when she heard it, a small, sharp sound from behind Madame Hyojin's door. Not a cry. Something smaller. The sound a person makes when they've been startled by pain and learned not to show it. She opened the door. Raylan was standing over the wheelchair. Madame Hyojin's right hand lay in her lap, fingers red and swelling. Raylan was adjusting the blanket with smooth, practiced movements. She looked up. Oh, Amara. I was just helping Aomioni. She was cold. Her voice was light and kind and completely empty. Amara looked at the hand. At the red marks where a heel had pressed, not by accident, not briefly, but deliberately. She looked at Madame Hyogin, who was staring at the window with the fixed expression of someone who has decided not to be in their body right now. I'll take over, Amara said. Her voice did not shake. Raylan smiled, touched Madame Hyogin's shoulder once, and left. That night, Amara iced the hand and wrapped the swollen finger. When Madame Hyogin finally looked at her, Amara said, "She's not smarter than you. She's meaner. Those aren't the same thing." After that, Raylan began to tighten the walls. She was careful about it, the way careful people always are when they know they've been seen. She spoke to the building manager about scheduling concerns, and Amara's shifts were quietly cut. 2 afternoons removed without explanation. The physiotherapist who had called Madame Hyogin professor and asked about her research was let go. His replacement reported to Raylan, nodded when she spoke, and never called Madame Hyogin anything but the patient. Mrs. O told Amara in a low voice over the kitchen sink. Something's shifting. I don't know what, but it's shifting. Amara knew. She had seen this before, not in a penthouse, but in the 2-room house where she grew up. Erasure doesn't happen all at once. It happens in pieces. A schedule cut. A door closed. A name forgotten. Until the person being erased looks around and finds that the world has rearranged itself so they barely exist in it anymore. Madame Hyogin was being erased. Amara used every permitted hour in that room. She braided. She read. She argued about books. She filled the space so warmly that even the walls seemed to hold it. She was building something. A resistance. Brick by quiet brick. By month 4, Amara understood the full shape of it. Not just cruelty. A plan. Reducing her shifts limited the only consistent witness. The new physiotherapist filed reports through Raylan's approval. The doctor who visited twice now described Madame Hyogin as showing signs of cognitive decline, notes Amara had never seen but heard mentioned in careful half-sentences. Raylan was building a case. Document by document. She was constructing a version of Madame Hyogin, confused, declining, incompetent, placing it piece by piece into official records where it would be very hard to challenge. Because the Kang family trust held 51% of Kong Industries in Madame Hyogin's name. That trust transferred to Jisoo only upon her death, or her legal declaration of incompetence. Raylan didn't want her dead. That would be obvious. She wanted her erased on paper. Amara sat in her small room and thought about this for a long time. She thought about her grandmother. About strong hands. About what they're truly for. Then she thought about the moment she had been watching build for weeks, Raylan alone in that room, certain of her safety, growing careless. It is coming, she thought. And I will be there. Month 4. Thursday. 4:07 in the afternoon. Amara heard the change in Madame Hyogin's voice from outside the door, not fear this time, but something harder. The professor's voice. Low and clear and absolute. I will tell my son what you are. He sat with me last week. He listened. He is beginning to see me again. And when he sees me clearly, he will see you clearly too. Raylan's response came back flat. Not angry. Not cold. Just empty the way a weapon is empty of feeling. No, he won't. Then the sound. Sharp. Skin on skin. An open hand striking a 71-year-old woman's face hard enough to knock her glasses to the marble floor. Amara opened the door. Frame 1. Raylan standing over the wheelchair, hand still raised, face completely blank. Frame 2. Madame Hyogin, head turned from the impact, left cheek red, glasses gone, eyes open. Not afraid. Defiant. Frame 3. The glasses on the floor. The left lens cracked. The things she needed to see, to read, to be herself. Something detonated in Amara's chest. Not rage. Not bravery. A reflex. The same one that had lifted her grandmother every morning for 16 years. 3 steps. Her right hand, open palm. Not a fist. A correction. Raylan fell sideways against the sofa arm and down to the marble. Her hair fanned out. Her dress crumpled. Her hand flew to her cheek. Amara stepped between her and the wheelchair. Her palm stung. She was shaking. She did not move. "Don't touch her again." Behind her, Madame Hyojin looked at Amara's back with an expression that had no name, the look of someone who has waited a very long time to see another person stand in front of them. 30 seconds passed. Then the tears came, Raylan's tears, right on schedule, precise as everything else about her. She was already composing herself, already calculating. The door opened. Jisoo walked in. He saw everything. Fiancée on the floor. Maid standing firm. Mother with a handprint on her face. Raylan spoke first. "She always did. She attacked me. I was visiting your mother and I'm frightened, Jisoo. I'm frightened of her." Jisoo looked at Amara. "Did you strike her?" "Yes." He looked at his mother. "Oh, Mioni. What happened?" Madame Hyojin looked at Raylan. At the face that said, "The home, the facility, alone." The face that had said it for 3 years and always won. And this time, the old woman looked away from it. The accusations came fast. Raylan called the police from the elevator, still crying, composed enough to be coherent and broken enough to be believed. "My fiancé's domestic worker assaulted me. I need to file a report." Technically true. Amara had struck her. The law does not ask why. It does not ask what came before, what was hidden, what was done to a woman in a wheelchair over 3 slow, quiet years. Amara was questioned in the lobby by 2 polite, thorough officers. Her work visa was noted. Immigration was flagged. The word assault sat in an official document beside her name. By the following morning, a story was moving through social media, not from Raylan directly, never directly. Billionaire's foreign maid attacks fiancé in penthouse. The comments filled fast. "Deport her. Who does she think she is? She should be grateful she had the job." Amara read them in her small room. Her hands did not shake. Her grandmother had heard worse from neighbors who believed a woman in a wheelchair was a punishment from God. She thought about Madame Hyojin down the hall. About whether anyone had turned the wheelchair back to face the window. Whether the curtains were open or closed. There was a knock at her door. It was Jisoo. He stood in her doorway in shirt sleeves, no jacket. For the first time he looked like someone who had been up all night rather than someone who had chosen not to sleep. "I had cameras installed after the renovation," he said. "Every room. They back up to a private server." Raylan didn't know about them. A pause. "I'm watching the footage now." He said it quietly. The quietest thing this loud, controlled man had ever said. He watched alone. 6 hours in his darkened office. He saw Raylan hide the glasses, opening the bureau drawer, placing them inside, closing it, walking out, leaving a 71-year-old woman in a blur for 2 days. He saw the wheelchair turn to face the wall. Watched his mother's hands grip the armrests, try to turn herself, fail, give up. 5 hours. While the river shone behind her. He saw the heel on the fingers. The yelp cut short. On Raylan's face, not cruelty. Something worse. Boredom. The boredom of a woman for whom causing pain had become routine. He saw Amara. Every day. Braiding hair. Finding glasses. Turning the chair. Holding a swollen hand in the dark. He watched it all. And understood what he had been too comfortable to see. The legal team found the deeper thing. A filing from 3 years ago. A preliminary trust transfer initiated 2 weeks before the car accident. Through Yoon and Associates, Raylan's family firm. Withdrawn 10 days after the accident. At the time, no one had looked closely. There had been a dead husband, a paralyzed widow, other things to attend to. But the timing was there for anyone willing to look. Paperwork filed to seize the Kong Trust, then 2 weeks later, the accident. The husband died. Madame Hyojin survived, but was paralyzed. The filing was withdrawn because the situation had changed. She was now controllable without a court order. Jisoo called his investigator at 3:47 in the morning. The car accident. My stepfather. Full incident report. Vehicle maintenance records. The report came back 2 days later. The brake inspection scheduled for the morning of the accident had been cancelled by a call from a number registered to Yoon and Associates. The brakes, the filing, the phone call, the timing. Jisoo sat with this for a full day. He thought about the man who had raised him, who fixed broken things and made terrible jokes and loved his mother quietly without asking anything back. Then he went to Amara, and together they went to Madam Hyojin. The press conference was Madam Hyojin's idea. Jisoo had wanted lawyers, authorities, private resolution. But the old woman who had spent 3 years being made smaller sat by her window and said, in the professor's voice, "I want her to know that I know. And I want the world to know. All of it." She wore her new glasses. Her braids. Spine straight. Hands still. Jisoo played 12 minutes of footage. The room went the kind of silent that isn't quiet, it's held. Reporters watched Raylan hide the glasses. Watched the wheelchair turn to face the wall. Watched the heel pressed onto the fingers. Heard the whispered threats subtitled, word by word. Then they watched Amara. Every day. Braiding hair, finding glasses, turning the chair back to the light. Then the slap. Then the open palm. Don't touch her again. Jisoo laid out the trust documents, the filing, the cancelled brake inspection, the link to Raylan's firm. Cameras flashed. And then Madam Hyojin spoke. "My name is Kang Hyojin. I taught Korean literature for 28 years. I am not confused. I am a woman in a wheelchair who was told to be silent. Today I speak because a maid chose to fight for me when I could not fight for myself." After that, the world moved fast. Raylan was investigated. Elder abuse. Financial fraud. Potential conspiracy in a fatal vehicle accident. Her brand collapsed overnight. The comments flipped, "Protect Amara, the maid is a hero." Her charges were dropped the same afternoon. 3 weeks later. Morning. The East Corridor. The room with the full bookshelf and the window facing the garden. The wheelchair in the light, always the light now, never the wall. Amara braided Madam Hyojin's hair. Same hands. Same pattern. "You're staying," Madam Hyojin said. Not a question. "I'm staying. Not as a maid. I'm not sure what else I am. My companion. My reader. My hair braider. My jollof rice chef. My friend. We are sentimental in Kumasi. We just hide it behind arguments." Jisoo had offered a formal position, full salary, visa sponsorship. Amara accepted on one condition. She answered to Madam Hyojin. Not to him. That evening, Tuesday, jollof rice filled the whole corridor. From down the hall, the professor's voice rang out. "I can hear you both. And yes, it is a date." She came with one suitcase and her grandmother's voice. She braided hair and cooked rice and argued about books. And when she saw cracked glasses on a marble floor, she moved. Stay dangerous. Stay loved.